It's December and we've got the last watch news update of 2025. For a market that's seemingly in decline, we are seeing a lot of exciting releases, not just for regular people, but also for the enthusiasts. Tudor, Omega, Universal Geneve, plus the Tariff roller coaster continues to go up and down. And I also have some thoughts on GPHG. Let's dive in. Tudor Ranger 36mm. I owned the first modern Tudor Ranger. It was big, it was bulky, I bought it with a bun strap and I sold it within a year. The 39mm Tudor Ranger was a vast improvement. It was slimmed down, it was much better proportioned watch that made the watch edible for more customers. Now they've added a 36mm version and some off-white, or as Tudor calls them, June dials. What you get is a COSC certified movement with 70 hours of power reserve. The watch itself is housed in a 36mm case, 19mm lug to lug, which is annoying but will survive. 11mm in height, sapphire crystal, 100 meters of water resistance, T-fit, easy adjust clasp, and a case and bracelet that is pretty much all brushed. The dial is a beige June color. The indices and numerals are black. The hand has the inset June coloring. There's also a black dial 36mm version. It's important to note that the June models do not have fully loomed indices and numerals, while the black version does. It costs $3,700 for the 36mm version on a steel bracelet. Who's it for? It's for the outdoor person. Although I do know that watch enthusiasts are the center of the universe, this watch doesn't have a primary customer that can answer the question of whether or not Edmund Hillary did or didn't wear a Rolex Explorer when summiting Everest for the first time. This is for people that think the Tudor Black Bay 1 is a little bit too dressy and too formal. They want something that leans far more towards an outdoor persona. People that buy this watch would at least consider sleeping in a tent once in a while. It has that everyman outdoor DIY Tim the Toolman Taylor kind of vibe to it. My thoughts. I'm doing an upcoming video on Longines, and I'm doing that video because I believe that Tudor are no longer the value leader, but Longines are. And this Ranger illustrates that brilliantly. The Tudor Ranger is COSC certified, 36mm, 70 hours of power reserve, all the bells and whistles, and it costs $3,700. Now the Longines Spirit is COSC certified, 39mm, 72 hours of power reserve, all the same bells and whistles, $3,100. It's $600 less. There is no meaningful difference in build quality between these two watches. None. From the specs perspective, there is no meaningful difference on these two watches. Both have excellent finishing. Both have excellent bracelets. Both have good looking dials. Nothing justifies an almost $600 premium. I like the Tudor Ranger. The 36mm version would be the one I would get. I don't know if I'm a purist, but 36mm just seems right for these kinds of watches. And I also think the dial proportions are just better. There's less negative space, all that kind of stuff. It's a beautifully executed watch. It's not exactly edgy in its design choices. It's not memorable, but it's not supposed to be. This is a watch that goes for the same vibe as a Hamilton Murph or a Rolex Explorer or any manner of other classic feel style watches out there. It's a good option, but is it class leading? No, not really. It's a good, welcome addition that will likely do reasonably well for Tudor, but it's expensive for what it is, and it's likely not where I'd put my money if I were looking for a Tudor. Honestly, I'd get the Longines Spirit, and then I'd save a couple of months, and then I'd get a Nevada Grenchen 369 Antarctic or another Antarctic model instead. That or a Murph. Both are nowhere near as well put together as the Tudor, but both those watches I feel are more interesting than the Ranger. On my rating scale from I'll forever remember this as a hideous watch to I'll have forgotten about it in a week to nice watch to I might recommend it to I keep coming back to it to this thing lives rent-free in my head, this watch is a watch I'll probably have forgotten a little bit about in a week's time. Thank you so much for tuning into my channel. If you are new here, click the subscribe button. It means a ton and it's a way of you telling me that you like my content. Thanks so much. Omega Planet Ocean. I have not had hands-on with the new Omega Planet Ocean yet, so keep that in mind. But my first reaction was, and it's probably typical of a lot of people, that's not the Planet Ocean. That's a Zenith A3648. Then I thought, ooh, it's shiny. Then I thought, that's kind of like a Grand Seiko. Then I thought, oh, that's quite the revamp of the Planet Ocean line. And then I thought, those dimensions are kind of cool. I mean, the lug to lug, the diameter, the thickness, all of it. And then I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. It's still 600 meters and the helium escape valve wart is gone. I think I went through the entire gamut of emotions and opinions when looking at the pictures of those watches, from hate to love to confusion to respect. You name it, I felt it. And I'm pleased with this watch for all sorts of reasons, but mainly not because of the watch itself. The main thing that pleases me is that I get the feeling that Omega is listening. People have been complaining about the Planet Ocean steadily getting bigger and bigger in the past years. This is a reset. It's not 39 millimeters, but these dimensions, 42 millimeters, are really, really good. People have been complaining about the thickness of Omega watches, which has been entirely justified. But this watch comes in at 13.5 millimeters, which is the same as a Seamaster 300M. They've ditched their obsession with display case packs for their METAS movements, and this has in part contributed to a noticeably and meaningfully thinner watch. The helium escape valve is gone, and it's also something that was divisive to say the least. The bracelet is good looking and has that desk diver style that so many people clamor for. It's not the old Seamaster 300M bracelet. It's a more sleek Planet Ocean bracelet. The center links are polished, which is not going to be to everybody's tastes, but the bracelet itself is impressive. And more than that, together with the case redesign, it represents a completely different watch and a completely different positioning of the Planet Ocean as a lineup. All of these things indicate to me that Omega has somebody listening to customers. I know there are Planet Ocean fans that think this watch is a massive departure from what they thought were the strengths of the Planet Ocean line. But if you set aside your personal preferences, this is a very deliberate repositioning of the line, and one that takes into account a lot of the customer feedback that has been out there. As for the repositioning itself, it makes sense to me at least. This watch is, despite its 600-meter water resistance, much less a diver now and much more of a desk diver. It's slimmer, it's shinier, it's more modern in its design cues, the bracelet is sleeker. If it weren't for the 600-meter depth rating, I'd put it as a competitor to the Submariner in look and feel, or maybe closer to a Yachtmaster because of the polish and the shine and the sleekness. For me at least, the Planet Ocean had drifted from being a strong but very capable all-rounder to the more butch end of the scale for those that felt the Seamaster 300M was getting a little bit too dainty. All those changes that they've put in bring this watch more towards the mainstream luxury desk diver customer to whom the old model, even the 39.5 millimeter model, didn't resonate. For me, it's a bit of the same journey the Seiko Marine Master has taken. People were also skeptical of the latest Marine Masters because they were just not that marine mastery in their designs. They were positioned just as premium level Seiko divers for the desk diver crowd with, the 62 MAS as the template. It's basically the same repositioning journey that you're seeing here, honestly. Do I like it though? Like I said, I haven't had hands-on yet, but now that I'm at least past my initial WTF stage reaction, I think it has potential. Is the polish of the center links going to be a bit much maybe? Right now I'm saying, it's a nice watch and I could go up or down from here once I see it in the metal. But the biggest point about this is the repositioning. That and Omega seemingly listening to feedback. That's good. And then there are the GPHG awards. This is the annual award ceremony where the watch industry gives prizes to the best in the industry. There are some perspectives that I have about this little award show that I think are important. First, none of you guys care. These watches are so ridiculously high-end that it will likely get close to 0 views on a site like YouTube. This is high-end, high horology for the most part. Second, it's not like the Oscars where it's movies you've heard of. This is more like Cannes Film Festival in terms of vibe. This is also like the old days of haute couture with fashion. Back in the day where designers would make a piece-unique one-piece swan dress as a creative statement and not as a commercially viable product. This is French art house movies and a Serbo-Croatian film noir where the story is told through interpretive dance and mime. Most of what they celebrate just won't resonate with normal, down-to-earth, regular customers with regular wallets. They are celebrating the niche and the special. Third, the watches I've seen in the metal are phenomenal. Even the ones I consider ugly, but in terms of technical prowess and sheer watchmaking skill, these watches, the movements, the finishing, the decoration is otherworldly. These watches are just next level. Which brings me to 3 watches that I thought were the most interesting to talk about. Last month, I made fun of the Gerald Genta Orsine, calling it the Hellraiser Pinhead collab watch. Oh, the Fire Opal version won a prize. I still think it's ugly beyond all belief, but the jury disagreed, so what do I know? Then there's this watch from a Chinese brand called Famelhut. I learned of this watch about a half a year before the nominees were announced. And I remember thinking, it's a mechanical Fitbit. This watch features a bi-axis tourbillon, a retrograde jumping hours and minutes in a very compact size. And it won the challenge prize. Again, it's not a watch aesthetically I find appealing, but in the terms of sheer complications, this watch is astounding. But more than anything, and I spoke to several Swiss watch manufacturers about this watch, and they all unanimously say one thing: we can't make it at that price. We just don't know how. This is a watch that costs $32,000, $33,000, $34,000. That's not cheap. But compared to what a bi-axis tourbillon retrograde jumping hour and minutes watch would cost from Moser, FP, Jean, or Vacheron, this watch is a relative bargain. And those Swiss manufacturers are shocked at what this Chinese brand has been able to put together at that price. Last watch, Beauvais Recital. I think it's the world's first mechanical world timer that accounts for daylight savings time. The 24 city rollers are printed on 4 sides, and the time period roller is printed with the 4 different time periods we have in this world. So UTC, American summertime, Europe and American summertime, and European wintertime. And the cities that do change, like Geneva, are printed 3 times, and Geneva and 1 time the city next to it. So in Geneva's case, London. So Geneva and London both change position on the dial when they go to daylight savings time. And that's just really, really cool. That's a fabulous little complication. Tariffs. Switzerland, represented by, among others, Rolex, met with Donald Trump. They gave him a clock, and now the tariffs have been lowered from 39% to 15%. Yay, I suppose. There were also promises of investment from the pharma industry. Independent researchers have verified that it was basically a meaningless commitment because there's no way to ensure that it happens. And it's already happening because a lot of production for pharma in the US by foreign countries is already done in the US, in North Carolina, by the way. So it's just the expansion of existing factories that was already planned to be done. But overall, it's a good thing. I'm curious, though, how the brands that did already raise their prices will react and whether or not they will re-lower their prices. They should, but we'll have to wait and see if they do. The Swiss watch industry saw their continued decline in exports to the US. In April and May, there was a huge surge of imports to the US. What happened was the brands pushed a massive amount of stock into the country prior to the tariffs going live so that the stock was already there. Well, what happened? In September, imports dropped by close to 55%. In October, the US dropped a further 46% compared to last year. China went up a little bit. So far for the year, the industry is down 1.6% from last year and down 4.1% from 2023. This is not good. LVMH bought a stake in Le Jour Pareil, so now they are also starting to have a setup like Richemont or Omega that have their own source of movements at most price points. What else? Seiko and Citizen reported good results. Richemont reported a decline in their watch business. Interestingly, Seiko is driven by Seiko Presage and Prospex in particular. And I mention this because it supports my theory that right now it's the brands that lean into value and affordability that have the most potential for resurgence. The overpriced, underinvested, high-end brands like JLC, those are the ones that seem to be struggling right now. I called it in a video almost a year ago. How about taking old UG movements and updating them to modern day specs? In the next 3 years, we'll have the joy of seeing a very few number of classic universal Geneve reinterpretations be released, but very, very few of us will likely get our hands on them. Universal Geneve, we're going to start doing some super limited releases to build hype, and that is exactly what they've done. First, the pole routers got released, and now 5 sets of 3 watches, recreations of the original Nina Rindt models, with original but restored movements inside and an updated take on the bun strap. I think these watches are gorgeous. I think they design-wise are hitting an aesthetic that is really popular right now. Brands like Nevada Grandchen, to some extent Baltic, and a host of others have some affordable options that have the same kind of design cues, just at a much more affordable price. What I'm seeing is Breitling doing to Universal Geneve exactly what you would expect. They are positioning them in the high end, but honestly much higher than I had initially predicted. The starting point for a three-hander is going to be like $15,000, $16,000. So we're above JLC territory and a sniff around or near, but not quite Patek or Vacheron territory. I still have questions about the movements. I think that's going to be the key for me. This needs to be a fully in-house, developed, spec'd, decorated, and finished movement. If not, I think they'll be challenged on credibility. But if they do make something stellar, I put my money on them aiming for a GPHG award within the next 1, 2, 3, 4 years. Last thing, AP CEO Iliera Resta, who took over from Ben Hamias, I always get that name so hard, has finally set her management team. Their new chief marketing officer comes from Nike and has never worked in watches. Their new chief finance officer has never worked in watches. He was in the airline industry. They have 2 legal officers in the team, and both of them have been at AP for a couple of years, actually for a long time. Their chief commercial officer comes from Ferrari and has never worked in watches. Their chief human resources officer has never worked in watches and comes from Nestle. Their chief design officer, he has been at AP for a lot of years. Ilaria herself comes from Procter & Gamble and has never worked in the watch industry before. The basic facts are that this is a management team that knows very little about the watch industry. This is a management team where the product is largely represented by one person. The idea, according to Mrs. Resta, is to get an outside-in perspective on the industry. We often talk about how insular and closed-minded the watch industry is and how conservative it is. And this is one way to potentially invite new ideas, to revitalize and energize a brand in a staled industry. They're taking a risk. I have my concerns. First of all, like I spoke about in my video about Patek Philippe, this isn't a product-focused management team. This team has very few voices that speak on behalf of the core product and has very few voices that have experience with the core product. It's also a team that is heavily slanted towards branding, marketing, and customer experience. I've read, I think, almost every single interview that has been done with Ms. Resta, and the thing that has struck me every single time is she never explicitly talks about making great products. She has stated, and this is a positive, that women in the watch world are underserved. Agree completely. She points to the fact that watches also underserve younger people. Completely agree. She also points out that there's huge potential in India and Southeast Asia. Those 3 points are all spot on. But she also always leans on customer experience, storytelling, and not product. The worst case scenario is that AP turns into an all marketing, no substance brand. And some of you will say they're already there. I don't quite agree, but that could be the direction. The best case, these outsiders completely revitalize a highly successful, but essentially one-trick pony company and bring them to the absolute forefront through innovation, out of the box and out of industry ideas. And I suppose we'll see. And in the words of Dodgeball,
it's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
That's what I had for this time. Share your thoughts in the comments. As always, like, subscribe. Cheers.